Welcome back. I'm Seeds, and in this episode, I'm calling it "I See Depressed People." And say reference aside, the reason I'm calling it that is more just to talk about what's driven me to the point of creating this channel, and again, too, me just trying to seek the venues and opportunities I can to help with mental health, and not just awareness, but more understanding it from a personal level. Talking about my pain and discussing the pain I've witnessed within my family and so forth, to really, like I said, bring understanding and knowledge. Because I think that awareness is great, but if we don't have understanding and knowledge, then all we're doing is we're poking at a wound. All we're doing is identifying that we have this immense pain, but we're left with no ability to combat it, no ability to resolve and heal the pain. And so again, I think it's really important for those who I want to say meet their calling, see their calling, to do that, to follow that. And so that's one of the things too that I suffered with, um, amongst the many other things of pain in my life, was that for years and years I didn't really know what to do with my life. I didn't know what my purpose was. For so many years after my twin brother's death, again, I looked at life as just trying to get through every day, as trying to not be the next hand grenade in my family's lives. I didn't want to give up for their sakes, and yet that was really where my main focus was just trying to not let my pain beat me and defeat me, and also try to enjoy life, try to focus on the good things in my life, focus on my wife and my kids and my family and so forth. But again, that's really what it was just me just going from being immensely sad because of my pain, and then trying to stop that and to suppress that so I could be happy when I was with my loved ones. But that's all really where my focus was. It wasn't on what my path was, what my mission in life was. And so again, for years and years, I let this go on, and it got really bad for a while. But then there came a point where I started, taking more control of my consciousness and my mental health awareness of it, and what it was doing to me and how it was affecting my family. And so that's when I started redirecting it. But at that point, when I really started redirecting my pain and taking control of my life, it was about 12 years after my twin brother's death. And that was one of the things that again, too, I couldn't believe it. It literally felt like I blinked and over a decade had passed. And it was just terrifying mentally, because I felt like I had wasted so much time. I felt like I had missed out on so many memories, and really, again, for a little while when I first started becoming aware of that extensive pain, and how I allowed my pain to control my mentality for so many years. That in itself was really, really difficult to own, to identify. I wanted to run away again once I realized how long it had been, because I just realized that's just one more horrific thing that happened in my life, was that so many years just whisked by. Um, and again, though, that was one of the things that I realized, was that because of that process, like I said, the beginning of your pain, you start to see more and more of this mountain of challenges that it creates. And again, you're in a frail state of mind. So a lot of times you look at the mountain and you're like, not today. I'm not going to climb it today. And that goes on and on. You lose track of time, and the next thing you know, it's been a decade, and the mountain has gotten immense. And you've let you have 10 years of deterioration of your mental health take place, and you feel like you lost 15 pounds of muscle mass, and you're this frail, this frail version of yourself. And you're like, how in the world am I going to defeat this mountain? It's bigger, and I'm weaker. How? But again, that was one thing I realized, was that was the same thing that kept me depressed for so many years, was just that mentality of, it's so immense, there's no point in trying. And so that's one thing I started, about 3 years ago, was I just started climbing the mountain. I just realized that, every day I'm not going to be able to, run a marathon every day. I'm not going to make these huge strides. But it's just about moving forward, even if it's just a couple of steps. It's just about moving forward. And so, again, that was one thing that, after this great amount of time had passed, and I had looked at my life and been like, what did I do with it? How did I let my pain control me for this long? How did I let this happen? I just started identifying more and more of the errors of my ways, how I let my pain blind me, and how it felt I had spent so much time reflecting on how my depression felt, how it was so hindering, and how, it felt like, and I say it felt like 1,000 pounds was on my shoulders. Literally, when depression hits me, it feels like Andre the freaking giant is just lying on top of me, and I'm just like, just breathe, just that's all you really can focus on. You're not moving, just breathe. Um, but again, that was just something I started putting the pieces together and realizing, I'm an extremely analytical person. I That's just something I've done in my nature since I was a little kid, was that I observe life and I can kind of put patterns together. When I was young, growing up, I was super good at math. And it was because once I learned rules, once I figured patterns out, I could just shoot that math through my head. I didn't use a lot of scratch paper. I could do all the math in my head, and it was because once I knew the rules and how things went out or played out, I could just do the math in my head. It was just something where I could see the equation and do all those things. And so that was one of the things that I realized with my, I don't say my destiny, with my mission, at least for now, is that, so I spent, well over a decade dealing with my own mental health and trying to heal. And so that's one thing I realized, was that I had gotten versed in pain. I'd been versed in depression and mental health. And again, too, just that was one of the things that was extremely intense, that was heavy for me, was just the amount of things that happened. Again, it was, my twin brother was killed the day after our 20th birthday. And then 7 years later, my father sexually molested one of my little sisters. And then in between that, it was like 2 years after my brother was killed. And this is a small thing, but it was something that ate at me. I had a contractor, I had a house being built, and the main contractor stole $27,000 from me. And again, he was actually partnered with a family friend, so I didn't want to sue him for the money he had stolen. And so I was out almost $30,000. And then, I would say a year after we finished our house, the market crashed. It was 2008. The market crashed. I lost $100,000 in equity. And so, again, and there's gobs and gobs of smaller things that happen where I just felt like, why am I even trying to think that somehow felt like a fool to think that I could be happy. I felt like a fool to think that life was gonna go smoothly. I just expected the next punch. But again, that's one thing I realized was, as much as I looked at my pain as a curse, it also opened my eyes to the reality of it. I looked back at how I looked at life, and I was always generally a compassionate person. I always wanted to help. But I didn't understand mental health in the least before my twin brother was killed. Nothing really immense had happened to me at that point. And so, I saw people that suffered from sadness, and like I said, I knew the concept of antidepressants and so forth, but I just thought it was for mentally imbalanced people. And as a matter of fact, it is, but what I didn't understand was that we all have a certain level of mental imbalance, and it's far more common than we all think. And so again, I just realized that I would not be here today talking about mental health if I hadn't lost my twin. I wouldn't have the education, the personal knowledge of how that feels, if I hadn't gone through it. And so it was a sense of, finding value in my pain, finding that, just realizing that the direction I was going in life, where I was before my twin brother was killed, I was very driven towards education. I was driven towards being successful financially and then starting a family. Well, because I was so mentally wounded, I just had this real desire to fill my life with love. And so I got married a lot younger than I was planning. And again, I started a family younger than I was planning. But again, I just realized that I would not have been in that state of mind and that focus where I needed that love in my life if I hadn't been through that pain. And so again, it just is something that led me to this point. And so as I've gone on, that's one of the things that I've realized too, is that I think it's important for everyone to reflect and to realize what their calling is. And I do think there are times where we get a little, I don't say we get distracted, but we have an idea of what our passion is. We love music, we love acting, we love, finances or whatever our real passion is that gets us up, that we strive for, our dream job, so to speak. And I think there are times where we need to take a step back and realize where that's at. And that's the thing is, over the last few years, that's one of the things I've thought about. I really wish I'd got my education in therapy and in psychology. but that's not how it worked out. And again, too, I have this urgency to try to help people. I want to help people. I don't want to, wait for 6 years or 8 years or whatever before I get a PhD in psychology before I can help somebody. So that's one thing I realized was I just started a YouTube channel. But again, that was the thing, was that one of the things that it's just, I would say, a sad gift of mine. Like I said, just how my mind thinks and how it forms patterns and sees truths, and again experience all this traumatic pain. That was one of the things that I watching. My wife loves watching dramatic reality. I don't want to say reality shows, traumatic, like true crime. She likes watching 2020 with all these murder mysteries and so forth that are true stories. And that's one of the things that over the last couple of years I've gotten into watching with her, and it was just really interesting watching all these people and their testimonies and these horrific things that people were going through. And it was crazy because I felt a deep connection to them. I felt, as I was watching their stories play out and seeing the tears well up in the family's eyes, I felt their loss. I felt their pain, and I don't know their pain, but it was just something where, I didn't feel pain like that before. I didn't see it, and like I said, that's why I call this I see depressed people, is that's my sixth sense. It's my ability to see pain and feel the pain of others, because of the pain I've experienced, and the truth that I can see in that, and I just have a knack for analyzing why people do what they do. Like I said, you see a lot of people making poor choices in their lives, and so many times it's because of mental health. It's because they were scarred by immense pain, and that it enabled them to be blind to the pain that they inflicted on others. But again, it's just that like I said, that's I feel that this is my calling, and so again, that's just something where I want other people to be self-reflecting and to be objective when they're self-reflecting, and not just say, okay, I love music and I idolize these artists or whatever. I idolize this artist, that artist, and so I want to. Well, we have to also too be honest with our own limitations, honest with our own position. So if you have a passion for music and being an artist, but your voice is kind of okay. I mean, one, depending on the type of music, you can actually pull it off. A perfect example, Bob Marley. Or not Bob Marley. I'm sorry. Not Bob Marley. Bob Dylan. And then again, too, for myself, I thought it'd be great to be a psychologist or psychiatrist. But again, I'm in my mid-30s. I can't. I mean, I can. I'd like to eventually. But in order for me to start helping people with mental health, I just looked at the opportunities I have and where I'm at and what tools I have. And, starting a YouTube channel is, anybody can start it. And so that was kind of my calling of how I'd like to get this off, how I'd like to start my path into helping with mental health. I was looking at what my calling was, but I was also being objective with where I was at, what my limitations were. And so again, I just encourage people to find their own sixth sense, so to speak, to find their own true calling. Because again, I feel like so many times we follow paths because we think we're supposed to, or because loved ones around us, our parents and so forth, want us to. And again, we're just I think it's a shame when we don't follow our passion, because that's something too. When I talk about mental health, when I talk about how it affects me, how it's affected others around me and so forth, when I dive into the pain, I don't just say, oh, you lost a loved one, that's sad. I really look at what about it is sad. How does it feel? What does it make you do or not do? That just really interests me, because I feel like I'm finding more pieces of the puzzle of how we can solve this, of how the impossible pain can be actually healed. That's one of the questions that I've asked myself, and I feel like a lot of people who suffer from mental illness ask themselves, is how do you not care without not caring? That being is, how do you not let the bad things get to you, but also at the same time not deny that they have happened, not deny. And so that's the thing, is that, and I've talked to people that have had a lot of traumatic pain in their lives, and they totally know what I mean. When I say, how do you not care without not caring? They know exactly what I mean. And what I'm talking about is not letting it get you down, not letting it defeat you, while at the same time acknowledging it happened, acknowledging it exists, and finding a place for it in your life. And I think that's, to me, that's where the answer is. And again, it's individual. It's something that the individual has to dissect their pain and again, to listen to other people's situations, just so they can find about their own situation. But again, too, it's just that sense of making a place for your pain in your life, figuring out how to properly identify it and, like I say, make an existence for it. Learn how to cope, truly cope with it. My twin brother's death is coming up on 15 years this August. And so that's one thing I've been thinking about a lot is what can I do to really embrace that day that he passed, that he was taken from me, but also to just be mindful of not letting it defeat me, of not letting it control, because like I said, I feel like that's a huge part of why traumatic events can take control of us, is because we don't really make a place for them. It's something that where, I say I've cried just about every single day since my twin brother was killed. But very, very few times have I let anybody see it, let anybody know about my pain. I think maybe, right after, obviously, but right after he was killed, yeah, my eyes teared up in front of everyone. But again, it was just natural for me to choke him down and try to hide and try to be strong. And again, too, I let my pain out a little bit at his church service, his funeral. But at the same hand, just so many years have come and gone, and I've just created this new function in my life where I hide my pain. It's a knee-jerk reaction. It's something I don't consciously choose to do. I just do it, like breathing. And so again, that's something that I've realized that I need to do, is I need to make a place for my pain, but also because by allowing a place for my pain, by allowing it to exist, it's taken less and less control over me. But again, it's just I hope that again, all these videos, again, they're not gonna resonate with everyone. They're not gonna resonate specifically, but there might be parts of those testimonies about depression, or about alienation, or about just all the effects of pain happening, that will hopefully lead other people to self-discovering truths within their own pain and healing processes with their own pain. But as always, good luck. Good night.